seidegrees.com.
This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Good evening, my name is Amrita Koshal and this is your evening newscast. An official of the Sheba Oil Exploration and Production Company confirmed that an oil production and storage ship exploded on Thursday and 10 crew members are feared dead. Ikemefuna Okafor said the offshore production facility known as Trinity Spirit erupted in flames in Upokoti on the coast of Nigeria's southern Delta state. Investigations are ongoing and the extent of damage is still unknown. It was reported that the ship is able to store up to 2 million barrels of oil and the explosion raises serious environmental concerns. This incident comes at a time when Guyana is still to secure full coverage insurance from oil operators here, despite numerous calls for such. Currently, the Liza Destiny vessel is operating at the Liza Phase 1 project in the absence of full coverage insurance. Despite numerous calls from local and regional actors, neither the PPPC government nor ExxonMobil have made any effort to give Guyana full coverage insurance to protect its environs and citizens from the irreversible and devastating effects of a potential oil spill. Moving on, speaking with members of the media at the Arthur Chung Convention Center, Vice President Barra Jagdeo disclosed on Thursday that the latest discovery made at the Kawa-1 well in the Quarantine Block will no doubt accelerate pressure on the government to now get its model production sharing agreement in place once and for all. Acknowledging that the government is prepared to rise to the occasion, Dr. Jagdeo was keen to note that the model PSA will address issues such as higher royalty rates, the need for ring fencing provisions, as well as those related to taxes. And in other stories, we now tell you, during the fourth day of budget debates in the National Assembly, Natural Resources Minister Vikram Bharat declared that the production sharing agreement, which was signed between the Government of Guyana and EEPGL, along with their partners to develop hydrocarbon resources in the Stabroek Block, represents the worst crime committed against Guyana and the Guyanese people. Although lamenting this, there was no mention of a renegotiation, a proposal that was made to the House minutes earlier by the Shadow Oil and Gas Minister, David Patterson. The AFC Member of Parliament, in his presentation to the House on the oil and gas sector, had offered the opposition's support to the government with regard to the renegotiation of the production sharing agreement. And in other stories, teachers and parents of pupils attending the Kurukururu Primary School, located on the Susdijk-Linden Highway, have written to the Minister of Education, Priya Manik-Chand, informing her of the unsanitary conditions they are forced to endure as pigeons have taken over the school. A parent who recently voiced her concern via a social media post said she attended a PTA meeting at the school and had the unfortunate experience of having to clean herself after a pigeon defecated on her. The teacher quickly offered to assist her with cleaning it and remarked that it was something they have to deal with on a daily basis. The parent explained that her child was recently enrolled at the institution and on the first day of school, he returned with the news that pigeons were living in the building. The educator noted that efforts were made by the head teacher to have the ministry address the situation, and the public relations officer of the ministry, Mertland Halley, when contacted, said he could not confirm whether a report was made to the minister, but did assure that an update would be provided on the matter shortly. Moving on, Senior Minister with responsibility for finance Dr. Ashni Singh on Thursday announced that Brazilian firm Construtora Queiroz Galvão S.A. has received the CDB's no objection to build the $190 million Linden to Mabura Road. This road project, which is the largest ever to be approved by the bank, is just the first phase that will ultimately lead to a completed Linden to Lethem road link that will then complete an overland link to Brazil. The Ministry of Public Works estimated the project to cost some $34 million. The Ministry of Finance, in a release, noted that Construtora Queiroz Galvão S.A. was determined as the most responsive bid, indicating full compliance with all environmental, social, and health and safety requirements. And having no objection being issued by the CDB, the next step will be for the government to engage in negotiations and conclude a contract with a Brazilian company. Budget 2022, which was read last Wednesday by Dr. Singh, has allocated a sum of $6 billion for the construction of the Linden to Mabura Hill Road. Time check for you, 19 hours 7. We will return with more news for you shortly after the And now back with more news in detail. Guyana will this year be opening new missions overseas, particularly in oil-producing states, United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Morocco. This is according to Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade, Hugh Todd, as he gave the disclosure earlier today when parliamentarians met for the last day of the budget presentation aspect of the budgetary approval process for this year, and spoke to the head of state, President Irfan Ali's commitment to an ambitious international policy agenda. With a total of $6 billion allocation, Minister Todd told the House that $3.6 billion of that is directly being plugged into the administration's foreign policy program. Moving on, former minister with responsibility for the telecommunications sector under the APNU-AFC regime, Kathy Hughes, added her voice earlier today to this year's budget debates, saying that, quote-unquote, "We are the fastest growing oil producing nation, but the best we can do is 11,000 laptops. Surely by now, with access to $607 million from oil reserves, every Guyanese child should have been given a laptop." The AFC executive was at the time addressing what she called a growing disparity with regard to the delivery of education in Guyana, which she contends has in recent years descended into a form of apartheid. According to Hughes, there is a huge disparity in the educational fortunes of those who cannot afford to pay for a private education. And finally, earlier today, senior officers within the Ministry of Education visited the home of the late Sharida Pasad, who was a grade 11 student of the Bushlot Secondary School, the 16-year-old who died following a vehicular accident on Wednesday at Mahaika on the east coast of Demerara. The ministry, in a release, noted, quote-unquote, "Our officers extended heartfelt condolences and words of comfort to the family of Sharida, who was a grade 11 student of the Bushlot Secondary School and represented Region 5 at the 2021 Youth Parliament, where she served as the Minister of Home Affairs." According to the release, the visit is only the first, as officers of the Department of Education for Region 5 were slated to visit the family to date to discuss what other assistance can be offered. Time check for you, 19 hours 11. My name is Amrita Koshal, and this was your nightly newscast right here on Kaieteur Radio.